I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who'd plan revenge. But then again, I never thought I'd be the kind of woman whose husband would empty her life savings and fly to the Maldives with his mistress and his parents while she was recovering from surgery. My name is Claire, I'm 34 years old, and 7 days after my husband destroyed everything I'd worked for, he called me sobbing, begging me to undo what I'd done. But by then, it was already too late. Before we go any further, I want you to drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. Are you team revenge or team forgiveness? Because trust me, after you hear what I went through, you might surprise yourself with your answer. And if you've ever felt betrayed, used, or discarded by someone you loved, hit that subscribe button right now. You're going to want to hear how this story ends. Also, check the description box below for more real stories like mine, stories about women who refuse to stay silent. Now, let me take you back to where it all started. It was a Tuesday morning in late September when I woke up alone in our king-sized bed, the sheets cold on his side. That should have been my first clue. David had been distant for weeks, maybe months if I'm being honest, but I'd chalked it up to work stress. He was a regional sales manager for a pharmaceutical company, always traveling, always on calls, always busy. I was a freelance graphic designer, working from home, managing our household, and trying to keep our marriage afloat while he drifted further and further away. I'd had a minor surgery the week before, nothing life-threatening, just a laparoscopy to remove some ovarian cysts that had been causing me pain for over a year. David had driven me to the hospital, sat in the waiting room scrolling through his phone, and brought me home afterward. He'd made me soup once. Then he'd gone back to his laptop, his phone, his distance. That Tuesday morning, I reached for my phone on the nightstand and saw 3 missed calls from my bank. My stomach dropped. Banks don't call at 7 in the morning unless something is wrong. I sat up too quickly, feeling the pull of my healing incisions, and dialed the number back with shaking fingers. Ms. Whitman. The banker's voice was professional but cautious. This is Rita from First National. I'm calling regarding some unusual activity on your joint savings account. My heart started pounding. What kind of activity? There was a complete withdrawal yesterday afternoon. $43,812. The transaction was authorized with your husband's credentials and PIN. I'm calling to verify this was legitimate. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the mattress, my surgical wounds suddenly screaming with pain that had nothing to do with the procedure. What? No, that's our savings. That's everything. For the house down payment. I understand this is distressing. The withdrawal was made at our downtown branch at 3:47 p.m. yesterday. The funds were transferred to a separate account and then withdrawn as a cashier's check made out to your husband, David Whitman. I couldn't breathe. The walls of our bedroom, the bedroom we'd shared for 6 years of marriage, seemed to close in. I'd been lying in bed recovering, trusting him, while he was at the bank draining our future. Where is he now? I whispered, though I was asking myself more than the banker. I'm sorry. Nothing. Thank you for calling. I hung up and immediately tried David's number. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. I threw off the covers and stumbled to his closet, ignoring the sharp pain in my abdomen. Empty. Not completely, but noticeably. His suitcases were gone. His favorite shoes. His toiletries from the bathroom. I ran downstairs, my bare feet slapping against the hardwood we'd installed together 2 years ago, and found a note on the kitchen counter, propped against the coffee maker. Claire, I need some time to think. Don't try to contact me. I'll reach out when I'm ready. D*. That was it. No explanation. No apology. No mention of the $43,000 he'd stolen from our joint account. Just a cold, dismissive note that read like a breakup text from a teenager. I sank onto the kitchen floor, my back against the cabinets, and I screamed. Not a horror movie scream, a deep, guttural wail that came from somewhere so primal I didn't recognize my own voice. I screamed until my throat was raw and my incisions ached and tears streamed down my face onto the cold tile. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted with your whole heart, you know that feeling. That moment when your reality just shatters. When you realize the person you thought you knew never really existed at all. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for the morning sun to shift through the window and cast long shadows across the floor. Long enough for my phone to buzz with a text from my best friend Marissa asking how I was feeling after surgery. Long enough for the shock to slowly curdle into something darker. I pulled myself up using the counter, grabbed my laptop from the living room, and logged into our joint credit card account. My hands were steadier now, running on pure adrenaline. And there it was, a charge for 4 round-trip tickets to Maldives. Departure date, yesterday. Return date, next Tuesday. Total cost, $11,640. 4 tickets. I stared at that number until it burned into my brain. David hadn't just run away. He'd taken people with him. His parents. His brother. And then I saw it, a hotel reservation confirmation in his email. I still had access because we'd always shared passwords, always been transparent in our marriage, always been a team. The confirmation showed 2 rooms at the Vilassaru Resort. Premium over-water bungalows. 1 room booked under David and guest. The other under Robert and Patricia Whitman, his parents. But who was the guest? I clicked through his emails with mechanical precision, no longer crying, no longer screaming. Just searching. And then I found her. Her name was Simone Torres. 27 years old. A pharmaceutical sales rep who worked under David's management. I found their email thread going back 8 months. Flirty at first, then explicit, then planning. Planning this trip. Planning a future. Planning to leave me. Asterisk, I can't wait to finally be with you without hiding. Asterisk, she'd written 3 weeks ago. Asterisk, your parents are going to love me. And once you're free from her, we can really start our lives. Asterisk. Once you're free from her. I was the obstacle. The inconvenient wife who needed to be freed from. And he'd done it by stealing everything we'd built together and flying off to paradise while I recovered from surgery in our empty house. I need you to hear me when I say this. I'm not a vengeful person by nature. I'd never even returned a coffee I didn't order correctly. But sitting there, reading those emails, seeing how carefully he'd planned this betrayal, something inside me shifted. Something cold and sharp and focused. If he wanted to be free from me, I'd make sure he got exactly what he deserved. I grabbed my phone and started making calls. The first call I made was to Marissa. She answered on the second ring, her voice bright and cheerful. Hey, babe. How are you feeling? Did you need me to bring anything over? He's gone, I said flatly. David. He emptied our savings account and flew to the Maldives with his mistress and his parents. Silence. Then, I'm on my way. Don't move. Don't do anything. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Marissa Chen had been my best friend since college. She was a corporate attorney at one of Seattle's top firms, brilliant and ruthless in the courtroom, fiercely loyal outside of it. If anyone could help me navigate this nightmare, it was her. She arrived in 15 minutes, still in her pajamas with a Starbucks cup in each hand. She found me exactly where I'd been when we hung up, sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by printed emails, bank statements, and credit card bills. I'd been documenting everything. Jesus, Claire, she breathed, setting down the coffees and pulling me into a hug. I let myself lean into her for just a moment before pulling back. I need your help, I said. Not as my friend. As my attorney. Her eyes sharpened. Tell me everything. I walked her through it all. The surgery. The withdrawal. The note. The emails. The trip. The mistress who worked under his supervision, which, Marissa immediately pointed out, was a massive HR violation and potentially grounds for his termination. I showed her the email where David had written to Simone, *, once I have the money secured, we can disappear for a week and figure out our next steps. Mom and Dad will help us navigate the divorce. They never liked Claire anyway. Asterisk. Reading that part out loud made my voice crack, but I pushed through it. His parents had never liked me. They thought I wasn't ambitious enough, wasn't from the right background, wasn't enough of anything. And apparently, they liked Simone just fine. Enough to vacation with her and their son while his wife recovered at home. Marissa's jaw was tight as she scrolled through the emails on my laptop. Okay. First things first. This withdrawal, did he have legal access to the account? It was joint, I admitted. Both our names. But all the money was from my inheritance when my grandmother died last year. I deposited it there because we were saving for a house. He contributed maybe $3,000 of his own money. But legally, once it's in a joint account, it's communal property in Washington state. She tapped her pen against her teeth, thinking. However, you can prove the source of the funds. And the fact that he withdrew everything while you were incapacitated from surgery, then immediately left the state? That shows intent. Malicious intent. Can I get it back? We can file for emergency relief and freeze any remaining assets. We can also file for legal separation immediately, which will protect anything you earn or acquire from this point forward. She looked up at me. But Claire, you need to decide right now. Do you want to save this marriage, or do you want to destroy him? I didn't hesitate. Destroy him. She smiled, not kindly, but with the sharp satisfaction of a woman who understood exactly what needed to be done. Then let's get to work. Over the next 6 hours, Marissa helped me build a case. We documented every email between David and Simone, including the ones where they discussed how to handle me during the divorce. We pulled bank records showing that all $43,000 had originated from my inheritance. We found text messages. David hadn't been as careful with his phone as he thought, where he told Simone that I was too depressed and medicated after surgery to notice what he was doing. Too depressed and medicated. He'd planned this around my surgery. He'd waited until I was vulnerable. We also discovered something else. David had opened a separate bank account 3 months ago under only his name. He'd been funneling money there slowly, $300 here, $500 there, small enough amounts that I hadn't noticed in our monthly budgets. That account now had about $8,000 in it. He's been planning this for months, I said numbly, staring at the statements. Which works in our favor, Marissa replied. This isn't a spontaneous mistake. This is calculated, premeditated financial abuse. The court will see that. But I wasn't thinking about court. I was thinking about the fact that David was currently lounging in an overwater bungalow, probably having breakfast brought to him by staff, while I sat in our kitchen surrounded by evidence of his betrayal. I was thinking about Simone, 27 and smug, probably wearing a bikini he'd bought with my money. I was thinking about his parents, Robert and Patricia, who'd always looked at me like I was temporary. I don't just want him in court, I said quietly. I want him ruined. Marissa set down her pen and looked at me carefully. Claire, as your attorney, I have to advise you to pursue this legally and ethically. And as my friend. She leaned back in her chair, a slow smile spreading across her face. As your friend? I think we should give him exactly what he deserves. But we have to be smart about it. If you go nuclear, it could backfire. We need to be strategic. Tell me what to do. And she did. The plan was multi-layered, legal where it mattered, devastating where it counted. First, we'd file for emergency legal separation and freeze all joint assets. Second, we'd report the relationship between David and Simone to his company's HR department, a clear violation of their fraternization policy for managers and subordinates. Third, we'd gather more evidence while he was gone, including accessing his work laptop that he'd left behind in his home office. Wait, I said. Can I legally access his laptop? It's in your house. You're married. And we're looking for evidence of financial misconduct and asset hiding, which is relevant to the divorce proceedings. She gave me a meaningful look. Just don't delete anything. Only copy. By evening, I was exhausted but clear-headed. Marissa had left to draft the legal separation paperwork, promising to file it first thing in the morning. I stood in our bedroom, my bedroom now, and looked at the space David had abandoned. The book he'd been reading still sat on his nightstand. His running shoes were still in the closet. He'd left thinking he could just come back, slip back into his life, and handle me however he wanted. He had no idea what was coming. I opened his laptop, password still our wedding anniversary, the irony wasn't lost on me, and started searching. His email, his documents, his browsing history. And what I found made me sit down hard on the bed. He hadn't just planned to leave me. He'd planned to bankrupt me. There were draft divorce papers in his documents, prepared by an attorney I'd never heard of. Papers that claimed I'd been unemployed and financially dependent on him for years, a complete lie. Papers that sought to claim half of my inheritance as communal property despite the fact that it had been kept separate until I made the mistake of depositing it in our joint account. Papers that painted me as unstable, depressed, and incapable of managing my own affairs. He was going to take everything. And he was going to make me look like the problem. I took screenshots of everything. Every document. Every email draft. Every search history entry where he'd looked up how to hide assets in a divorce and wife's inheritance rights Washington state. Then I found the folder labeled Simone. And inside were photos. Hundreds of them. The two of them together at work events I thought he'd attended alone. The two of them at restaurants I recognized, restaurants we'd been to together. One photo, dated 3 months ago, showed them in our bed. Our bed. While I'd been visiting my sister in Portland. I made myself look at every single one. I made myself memorize the way she looked at him, the way he smiled at her, a smile I hadn't seen directed at me in over a year. I made myself feel every bit of the rage and humiliation and grief. Because I was going to need it. By the time I closed the laptop, it was past midnight. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. My hand trembled as I opened it. Asterisk having a wonderful time in paradise. Thought you should know I won't be back Tuesday. Extended the trip. Don't wait up. D***. He'd sent it from a new number. A number I didn't have. He was rubbing it in my face. I typed back, *enjoy it while it lasts. Then I blocked the number, took a pain pill for my still healing incisions, and went to bed in the center of the mattress. Alone. But not lonely. Not anymore. I had work to do. Approx. 1,600 words. Chapter 3. The Corporate Complaint and the Freeze. Wednesday morning, I woke up with a purpose I hadn't felt in years. The pain in my abdomen was still there, a constant reminder that while I was healing, David had been planning his escape, but I pushed through it. Marissa arrived at 9 with legal documents and a grim smile. "We're filing today," she said, spreading papers across my kitchen table. Legal separation, emergency motion to freeze assets, and a temporary restraining order on any further financial withdrawals from accounts in his name. How fast can this happen? I called in a favor with Judge Morrison. She's hearing emergency motions today at 2. If she grants it, and she will, every account with his name on it will be frozen by close of business. She handed me a pen. Sign everywhere I've marked. I signed. Page after page, my signature getting firmer with each one. Claire Whitman. A name I'd taken 6 years ago, standing in a church wearing a dress I'd saved for months to buy, promising to love him in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer. He'd broken every single vow. What about his job? I asked. Marissa pulled out her phone. I've drafted an email to BioPharm Solutions HR department. It details the relationship between a regional manager and his subordinate, includes timestamps of emails sent during work hours, and notes that company resources, including his company card, were used to book personal travel with said subordinate. I read the draft email. It was clinical, professional, and absolutely damning. It included just enough evidence to be credible without revealing how much more we had. Will they fire him? Most Fortune 500 companies have zero-tolerance policies for manager-subordinate relationships, especially when they're not disclosed. At minimum, he'll be suspended pending investigation. At maximum. She shrugged. He'll be terminated with cause, which means no severance, no good reference, and possible legal action if the company decides Simone could claim sexual harassment given the power dynamic. But she pursued him, I said, then stopped myself. Actually, I don't know that. I don't know who started it. Doesn't matter. He was her manager. He had the power. He should have shut it down or reported it to HR and requested reassignment. He didn't. That's on him. She looked at me seriously. Claire, once I send this, there's no taking it back. His career will be affected. Are you sure? I thought about the $43,000. The surgery I'd gone through alone. The text last night, casual and cruel. The photos in our bed. Send it. She hit send, and we watched the email disappear into the corporate machinery that would dismantle David's professional life. Within hours, someone in HR would read it. They'd launch an investigation. They'd interview colleagues. They'd discover that David and Simone had been obvious about their relationship to everyone except me. Now what? I asked. Now we wait for the hearing. Get dressed. We're going to court. Judge Alice Morrison was a woman in her early 60s with steel-grey hair and an expression that suggested she'd heard every lie, excuse, and manipulation tactic in the book. She read through our emergency motion with a speed that spoke to decades of practice, occasionally making notes. I sat in the courtroom next to Marissa, my hands folded in my lap to keep them from shaking. This was real now. This was me, legally ending my marriage in a wood-paneled room that smelled like old paper and broken promises. Ms. Whitman, Judge Morrison said, looking up at me. You allege that your husband withdrew $43,000 from your joint savings account while you were recovering from surgery and then left the state without notice. Yes, Your Honor. And you can prove the source of these funds. Marissa stood. Yes, Your Honor. We've submitted documentation showing that the funds originated from Mrs. Whitman's inheritance from her deceased grandmother, deposited into the joint account approximately 14 months ago. Mr. Whitman contributed approximately $3,000 total to that account. Judge Morrison reviewed the documents. And Mr. Whitman is currently in the Maldives, Your Honor, with his parents and his mistress, a trip booked using marital credit cards. Marissa handed up more documents. We've also included evidence of a workplace relationship that violated his company's policies, which we've reported to his employer. The judge's eyebrows rose slightly, the first sign of emotion I'd seen from her. I see. She flipped through more pages. And you're requesting an emergency freeze on all accounts bearing Mr. Whitman's name, as well as a temporary restraining order preventing him from accessing or withdrawing any further marital funds. Yes, Your Honor. Given that Mr. Whitman has demonstrated both the intent and the means to dissipate marital assets, we believe immediate action is necessary to protect Mrs. Whitman's interests. Judge Morrison was silent for a long moment. Then she signed the order. Granted. All accounts will be frozen as of today's date. Mr. Whitman will be served notice upon his return to Washington State. Is there anything else? Yes, Your Honor. Marissa straightened. We're also filing for legal separation effective immediately, with a petition for divorce to follow. We request that any assets acquired or income earned by either party from this date forward be considered separate property. Granted. Another signature. Mr. Whitman will have the opportunity to respond to these motions upon his return. Is he represented by counsel? We're not aware of any retained counsel at this time, Your Honor. Very well. Make sure he's properly served. This hearing is adjourned. We walked out of the courthouse into the Seattle drizzle, and I felt like I could breathe for the first time in 3 days. Marissa was practically bouncing with satisfaction. Every account with his name on it is now frozen, she said. His checking, his savings, that secret account he set up, the joint credit cards, everything. He can't access a dime without a court order. And given that he's currently on an extended luxury vacation using stolen marital funds, no judge is going to unfreeze anything for him. What happens when he tries to use his credit card? I asked. Declined. Every transaction. His debit cards? Frozen. That secret account he thought you didn't know about? Inaccessible. She grinned. He's going to find out the moment he tries to pay for dinner tonight. The vindication was sweet, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. There's more we can do, I said. Claire. You said we had to be strategic. I've been strategic. I've been legal. But I want him to understand what he did to me. I stopped walking and turned to face her. I want him to feel it. She studied my face for a long moment. What do you have in mind? That evening, I did something I'd never done before. I called David's parents. Patricia Whitman answered on the third ring, her voice warm and relaxed. I could hear ocean waves in the background. Hello. Patricia. It's Claire. A pause. Then, cooler, Claire. How are you feeling? David mentioned you had surgery. David mentioned it. I let the bitterness seep into my voice. How thoughtful of him. Before or after he emptied our bank account and flew to the Maldives with his mistress? Silence. Then, I think you're confused. I'm not confused. I know exactly where you are and who you're with. I know about Simone. I know about the $43,000. I know everything. I kept my voice steady, almost pleasant. But I'm not calling to argue with you. I'm calling to let you know that as of today, David has no access to any of his accounts. They've all been frozen by court order. You can't do that. I already did. So when the resort tries to charge his card for that room extension he booked, it's going to decline. When he tries to take you all out for a nice dinner, declined. When you try to fly home next week, well, you'll figure it out. This is ridiculous. Robert. I heard her calling for David's father. Robert, she's frozen all of David's accounts. Good luck getting home, I said sweetly. Oh, and Patricia? I've also reported his relationship with Simone to his company. They're launching an investigation. So he might not have a job to come back to anyway. Enjoy the rest of your trip. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking, but it was from adrenaline now, not fear. I'd just blown up David's paradise vacation. Within hours, he'd know that his cards didn't work, that his money was inaccessible, that his carefully planned escape had turned into a trap. And he still had 4 more days before his original return flight. My phone rang almost immediately. David's new number. I declined the call. It rang again. Declined. Then a text. Asterisk, what did you do? Call me right now. Asterisk. I blocked the number. Then I ordered Thai food, took a long bath, and slept better than I had in years. Asterisk. Approx. 1,800 words. Asterisk. Chapter 4. The Calls from Paradise. If you're still watching, drop a comment and let me know. Have you ever gotten revenge on someone who wronged you? Because what happened next made everything worth it. And before we continue, make sure you've hit that subscribe button. This story is about to get even more intense. Check the description box below for more real stories about women who fought back. The call started Thursday morning at 4:47 a.m. I know because I was awake, sitting in the dark kitchen with coffee, watching my phone light up with call after call from numbers I didn't recognize. International numbers. I let every single one go to voicemail. By noon, I had 17 voicemails. I listened to them in order, each one more desperate than the last. The first was from David, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. Claire, I don't know what the hell you think you're playing at, but you need to fix this immediately. My cards aren't working. Call me back. The second. Claire, this isn't funny. I'm stuck here with my parents and we can't access any money. Whatever you did, undo it. Now. The third, please. Claire, please call me back. The hotel is threatening to hold our passports until we settle the bill. We've maxed out Mom and Dad's cards. We need help. I sipped my coffee and listened to my husband beg. By the fifth voicemail, his mother had taken over. Claire, I don't know what David did to upset you, but this is cruel. We're stranded here. The resort won't let us leave until the balance is paid. Robert had to call his brother to wire money. You're making this so much worse than it needs to be. Making it worse. I'd been recovering from surgery while her son stole my inheritance and flew halfway around the world with his mistress, but I was making it worse. The 10th voicemail was from a woman I didn't know, Simone. Her voice was young, scared. Claire? This is Simone Torres. I know this is weird, but David said you might be able to help us. The hotel is asking for $8,000 and none of our cards work. I don't have that kind of money. I'm sorry if I caused problems. Can you please help us get home? $8,000. That's what the resort was holding them for. The unpaid balance on those overwater bungalows and room service and spa treatments and romantic dinners. The fantasy David had built on my money was now trapping him. I didn't call back. Not yet. Instead, I forwarded all the voicemails to Marissa with a simple text. Is this harassment? She replied immediately. Borderline. Don't respond. Let them panic. How are you holding up? I'm fine. Better than fine. Actually. And I was. For the first time since that Tuesday morning, I felt like I had power. Not just over the situation, but over my own life. David had tried to make me into a victim, tried to paint me as the depressed, unstable wife who couldn't cope without him. Instead, I'd become the woman who burned his paradise to the ground without leaving my kitchen. By Friday afternoon, the calls had stopped. I imagined they'd found a way to pay, Robert's brother, maybe, or a maxed-out credit card, and were now sitting in the airport or already on their way home. I imagined the conversations they were having. The blame being thrown around. David trying to explain to his parents how this had happened. Simone realizing she'd thrown her career away for a man who couldn't even afford to get her home from vacation. I was right about most of it. David's brother, Michael, called me Friday evening. Unlike the rest of the family, Michael had always been kind to me. He'd been at our wedding, had helped us move twice, had loaned us his truck when we needed it. Claire, he said when I answered. I need to talk to you about David. Go ahead. I wired them money to get home. $8,000. David swore he'd pay me back as soon as he got home and accessed his accounts. He paused. But that's not happening, is it? No. Jesus. Claire. What happened? I told him. Not everything. I didn't mention the revenge planning or the strategic moves, but I told him about the surgery, the withdrawal, the note, the mistress. I told him about the emails and the photos in our bed and the draft divorce papers where David had lied about my employment and my stability. Michael was quiet for a long time. Then, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. If I had known. It's not your fault. He's my brother, but this is wrong. What he did is wrong. He sighed. They land tomorrow night. He's going to call you. He's going to try to fix this. There's nothing to fix. I know. But Claire, whatever you're planning, whatever you've already done, he deserves it. I want you to know that. After we hung up, I sat with that conversation for a while. David's own brother was on my side. That meant something. It meant I wasn't crazy or cruel or vindictive. It meant that what David had done was so clearly wrong that even his own family couldn't defend him. Saturday morning, Marissa called. Biopharm Solutions suspended him. Effective immediately. Pending investigation. How do you know? I have a friend in their legal department. She called me off the record. Apparently, When HR started asking around, they found out that David and Simone's relationship was common knowledge in the office. Multiple people confirmed they'd seen them together, traveling together to conferences, staying in the same hotel rooms. And get this, he'd been putting her travel expenses on his corporate card and claiming them as client entertainment. Fraud, I said. Corporate fraud. They're talking about involving their legal team to recoup costs. Claire, he might face criminal charges. I should have felt guilty. I should have felt something other than the cold satisfaction that spread through my chest. But I didn't. He'd planned to destroy me. Instead, he was destroying himself. When do they land? Marissa asked. Tonight. Around 10. Are you going to talk to him? Eventually. But not yet. Let him sweat. David called at 11:34 p.m. I was in bed, reading a book I'd been meaning to finish for months, finally having the mental space to focus. I let it ring. He called again at midnight. Then 12:47. Then 1:15. Each time, I declined. At 2:08 a.m., he sent a text from yet another number. Claire, please. I need to talk to you. I know you're awake. Please. I typed back, I'm awake. I'm just not interested in talking to you. My phone rang immediately. This time, I answered. Claire, thank God. You have 5 minutes, I said coldly. Talk. I know you're angry. I know I messed up. But what you did, freezing the accounts, calling my work, leaving us stranded, that was cruel. That was over the line. His voice was raw, exhausted. We need to sit down and talk about this like adults. Like adults, I repeated. You stole $43,000 from our account while I was recovering from surgery. You flew to the Maldives with your mistress and your parents. You left me a note. And now you want to talk like adults. I was going to pay it back. It was just, I needed time to think, and Mom and Dad suggested the trip, and Simone was going through a hard time. Stop. I sat up in bed. Don't you dare try to minimize this. You didn't take a vacation to think. You took my inheritance money to finance a romantic getaway with the woman you've been sleeping with for months while lying to me every single day. It wasn't like that. I read the emails, David. All of them. The ones where you called me depressed and boring. The ones where you planned how to divorce me and take half of everything. The ones where you laughed about how clueless I was. My voice didn't shake. I was surprised by how steady I sounded. I saw the photos. In our bed. While I was in Portland visiting my sister. Silence. Yeah, I said. I know everything. And you want to know the best part? You did this to yourself. I just made sure the consequences caught up to you. What do you want? He asked finally, his voice small. What do you want from me? Nothing. I want nothing from you. I want you to sign the divorce papers when they are served. I want you to stay away from me. And I want you to understand that you can't betray someone, take everything from them, and expect to walk away unscathed. You ruined my life. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. No. You ruined your own life. I just stopped protecting you from yourself. There's a difference. I hung up before he could respond. Sunday morning, I woke up to find that David had been to the house while I was asleep. Not inside. I'd changed the locks on Friday, another thing Marissa had advised, but he'd left things on the porch. A duffel bag of clothes, some toiletries, and a handwritten letter. I brought everything inside except the letter. That, I photographed first, evidence. Marissa had taught me, always preserve evidence, before opening it. Claire, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to understand. But I need you to know that I never meant to hurt you. Things with Simone just happened. I was unhappy, and she made me feel alive again, and I convinced myself that leaving was the right thing to do. I was wrong about how I did it. I should have talked to you first. I should have been honest. I shouldn't have taken the money the way I did. But I was scared you'd fight me on the divorce, and I just wanted out. I wanted to start over. What you've done to me these past few days, freezing my accounts, getting me suspended from work, humiliating me in front of my parents and Simone, that's not the woman I married. The Claire I knew was kind and forgiving and understanding. This version of you is cruel. I'm staying at my parents' house for now. I'll have my attorney contact you about the divorce. I don't want to drag this out. I just want it to be over so we can both move on with our lives. I hope someday you'll understand why I did what I did. And I hope someday you'll forgive me. David. I read it twice, looking for an apology. A real one, not the non-apology disguised as explanation and self-justification. It wasn't there. He was sorry he'd been caught, sorry there were consequences, sorry I'd fought back. But he wasn't sorry for what he'd actually done to me. And he'd called me cruel. Me. Because I'd protected myself and my assets from a man who'd planned for months to destroy me financially and emotionally. Because I'd exposed his corporate fraud and his affair. Because I'd refused to be a victim quietly. I took the letter, added it to my growing file of evidence, and went to make breakfast. Marissa arrived at noon with bagels and news. Simone's been fired. I looked up from my coffee. Already. Terminated Friday afternoon. Apparently, during the HR investigation, they discovered she'd been claiming personal expenses on her corporate card too. Conference hotel rooms that she and David shared, dinners for two billed as client meetings. The company's taking it seriously because it opens them up to liability. If she or David tries to sue, they want documentation that they acted appropriately. What about David? Still suspended pending investigation, but his termination is coming. They're just dotting their I's and crossing their T's legally. She pulled out her phone and showed me an email. And this came to my office yesterday. From David's attorney. I read it. It was a formal letter requesting that I immediately lift the freeze on David's accounts, citing financial hardship and lack of access to basic necessities. It claimed that my actions were punitive and exceeded the scope of reasonable asset protection. What does this mean? I asked. It means he hired a lawyer. A decent one, actually. Jonathan Reeves. He specializes in family law. She set down her phone. He's going to file a countermotion to unfreeze at least some of the accounts. And honestly, Claire, he might succeed. Judges don't like complete freezes for extended periods. David can argue he needs access to money for living expenses. My stomach dropped. So he wins. No, he doesn't win. But the court will likely grant him limited access to his separate accounts, the ones with only his name on them. Not the joint accounts, not your inheritance money, but his checking account and that secret account he set up? They'll probably release those with restrictions. She squeezed my hand. But that's okay. We have enough. The divorce will take months, and during that time, all the evidence we've gathered will matter. You'll get your inheritance money back. You'll get your half of any joint assets. And he'll get nothing more than what he's legally entitled to, which isn't much. He's staying with his parents, I said. I know. Michael told me. Apparently, Patricia is furious with you. Robert won't talk about it, and David's been locked in the guest room since they got home. Simone went back to her apartment in Tacoma. Word is they're not even speaking after what happened in the Maldives. What happened? Marissa grinned. According to Michael, who got it from Robert, there was a massive blowout at the resort when the cards declined. David blamed Simone for pushing him to extend the trip. Simone blamed David for saying he had everything handled. Patricia blamed both of them for ruining their vacation. And Robert apparently told David he was a disgrace who'd embarrassed the family. The vindication was sweet, but it was tinged with something sadder now. I'd been married to David for 6 years. We'd built a life together, Or I thought we had. And now it was all reduced to legal filings, frozen accounts, and blame games in luxury resorts. "Hey," Marissa said softly. "You okay?" "I don't know," I admitted. "I wanted him to suffer. And he is. But I don't feel as good about it as I thought I would." "That's because you're not actually a cruel person, despite what his letter says. You're someone who was protecting herself from a man who tried to destroy you. There's a difference." She pulled out more papers. "Now, we need to talk about the divorce filing. I'm recommending we go for fault-based divorce citing adultery and financial misconduct. It'll take longer than a no-fault, but it'll support your claims for a larger share of assets and potentially spousal support." "I don't want his money." "Claire, he doesn't have money. He's about to be unemployed and unemployable in his industry. But you're entitled to half of any retirement accounts, any equity in joint property, any assets acquired during the marriage. That's not revenge. That's just the law." We spent the rest of the afternoon planning. Marissa walked me through what the next 6 months would look like: depositions, financial disclosures, mediation attempts, possibly a trial if we couldn't settle. It was exhausting just thinking about it. But I'd started this. And I was going to finish it. Monday morning, I did something I'd been putting off. I went back to work. My clients had been understanding about my surgery and recovery, but I had deadlines looming and projects that needed attention. Sitting at my desk in the home office, the same office where I'd found David's laptop and all his secrets, I opened my design software and tried to focus. It was harder than I expected. Every notification on my phone made me jump. Every email made my heart race, expecting more threats or pleas or accusations. But slowly, as the morning wore on and I lost myself in color palettes and typography and client revisions, I started to feel normal again. Not whole. Not healed. But normal. At 2:37 p.m., my doorbell rang. I checked the security camera I'd had installed over the weekend, another Marissa suggestion, and saw a man in a suit holding a folder. "Process server." I opened the door. "Claire Whitman." "Yes." "You've been served." He handed me the folder and left. Inside were David's counterfilings. A motion to unfreeze his accounts. A motion to dismiss my fault-based divorce claims. A motion to split all assets 50-50, including my inheritance. And a declaration, signed by David, claiming that I was emotionally unstable, had made false accusations about his relationship with Simone, and had maliciously sabotaged his career and finances out of spite. I called Marissa. "He's saying I'm lying about everything." "Of course he is. It's a legal strategy. He's trying to paint himself as the victim and you as the vindictive ex." She didn't sound worried. "But we have evidence. Hundreds of emails, text messages, photos, bank records. His lawyer's grasping at straws. He wants half of my inheritance. He won't get it. We can prove source of funds. Stop worrying. This is all posturing." But I was worried. Because for all the satisfaction I'd felt watching David's life implode, I was realizing that this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. This was just the beginning of a long, ugly legal battle that would drag every private moment of our marriage into the light. That night, I got an email from David's personal account, not one I'd seen before, which meant he created it specifically to contact me despite my blocking him everywhere else. Asterisk subject. Please read asterisk. Asterisk Claire asterisk. Asterisk I know you don't want to hear from me. I know you've blocked my numbers and you're refusing to communicate except through attorneys. But I'm begging you to please read this. Asterisk. Asterisk I made mistakes. Huge mistakes. I betrayed you in ways I can never take back. But what you're doing now is going to destroy both of us. The legal fees alone will eat up everything we have. And for what? So we can both walk away with nothing but anger and debt. Asterisk. Asterisk can we please try mediation? Just the two of us. No lawyers, no parents, no one else. Let's sit down and figure out how to end this without destroying each other completely. Asterisk. I know I don't deserve your compassion. I know I broke your trust. But we loved each other once. That has to count for something. Please. D. I stared at the email for a long time. There was a part of me, a small, tired part, that wanted to say yes. That wanted to believe we could sit down like adults and end this peacefully. That wanted to avoid months of legal warfare and thousands of dollars in attorney fees. But then I remembered the note he'd left on the kitchen counter. The casualness of it. I need time to think. Like our marriage was a Netflix subscription he could pause whenever convenient. I remembered the $43,000, gone in one afternoon while I slept off anesthesia. I remembered the emails where he'd laughed about how oblivious I was. I remembered the photos in our bed. And I wrote back. David. Will communicate through our attorneys. That's what they're for. Claire. Then I blocked that email address too and went to bed. Approx. 1,900 words. Chapter 5. The 7 days. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon, exactly 7 days after David had landed back in Seattle. I was in the middle of a client Zoom call when my phone lit up with David's mother's number, one I hadn't blocked because I'd honestly forgotten about it. I let it go to voicemail, finished my meeting, and then listened to the message. Patricia's voice was strained, almost frantic. Claire, you need to call me immediately. Something's happened. It's about David. Please, just call me back. Against my better judgment, I called. Claire, thank God. Patricia was crying. Actually crying. I'd never heard her cry before. It's David. Something's very wrong. He won't come out of his room. He's been in there for 2 days. Robert tried to get him to open the door, but he just keeps saying it's all over, that you've ruined everything. Patricia, I don't. Please. I know you're angry with him. I know he hurt you. But he's my son, and I'm worried he's going to hurt himself. Can you please just talk to him? Maybe if he hears your voice. No. The word came out harder than I intended. Patricia, if you're genuinely worried about David's safety, call 911. Call a crisis line. But I'm not responsible for his mental health. Not anymore. You did this to him. Her grief flipped instantly to rage. You took his job, his money, his dignity. You've destroyed him. He destroyed himself, I said quietly. And he tried to destroy me first. I'm sorry he's struggling, but I can't help him. I won't. I hung up before she could respond. But her call had unsettled me. Was David actually in crisis? Or was this manipulation? Another attempt to make me feel guilty, to make me back down? I called Marissa. She's trying to guilt you, Marissa said firmly. Classic manipulation tactic. If David is genuinely suicidal, his parents need to get him professional help. That's not your responsibility. But what if? Claire, no. You cannot let them make you responsible for his choices. He made decisions, bad decisions, and now he's facing consequences. That's not your fault. She was right. I knew she was right. But I couldn't shake the image of David locked in his childhood bedroom, spiraling. 2 hours later, Michael called. Hey. Mom called you, didn't she? Yeah. I figured. Listen, David's not suicidal. He's just dramatic. He came down for dinner, ate 3 plates of Mom's lasagna, and then went back upstairs to call his lawyer. He's fine. The relief I felt was mixed with anger. So this was manipulation. Yep. Mom's convinced you're the villain in this story. She keeps saying David just made a mistake and you're being vindictive. She doesn't want to admit that her golden boy is a lying, cheating thief. He sighed. I told her the truth. That you have every right to protect yourself and that David deserves what he's getting. She didn't take it well. Thanks for letting me know. Claire, for what it's worth, I think you're handling this exactly right. Don't let them guilt you. After we hung up, I realized my hands were shaking. Not from fear or guilt, but from rage. They were still trying to control me, still trying to make me the problem. Even now, after everything, I was supposed to be the understanding wife who forgave and accommodated and made things easier. I was done being that woman. Wednesday morning, Marissa called with news. The judge granted David limited access to his personal accounts. He can withdraw up to $500 a week for living expenses. Everything else stays frozen. That's it. That's it. $500 a week. His lawyer argued for more, but Judge Morrison wasn't sympathetic. She basically said that David created this situation by his own actions and $500 weekly is more than enough for basic necessities while the divorce proceeds. I did the math. $500 a week. That was barely enough for gas, food, and basic expenses. Certainly not enough for the lifestyle David was accustomed to, the expensive dinners, the new tech gadgets, the designer clothes. What about Simone? I asked. Has she sued the company? No. She signed a severance agreement with a non-disparagement clause. She gets 2 months' pay and agrees not to sue or talk publicly about what happened. Smart move on Biofarm's part. And David? No severance. Terminated with cause. His termination letter cites corporate fraud, falsified expense reports, and violation of workplace conduct policies. Marissa paused. Claire, there's something else. Jonathan Reeves, David's attorney, called me this morning. He wants to discuss settlement. My heart jumped. Already. David can't afford a prolonged legal battle. He has no income, limited access to funds, and no job prospects given that he'll have to disclose his termination if anyone does a background check. Reeves knows they're in a weak position. He's pushing for mediation. What do? We agree to mediation, but we go in strong. We have all the leverage. He has none. We're going to get you everything you're entitled to, plus the return of your full inheritance, plus we're going to make sure he walks away with nothing more than his retirement account, which he'll have to split with you anyway, and his car. When? Mediation is scheduled for next Friday. 10 days from now. Can you handle seeing him? I thought about it. Could I sit in a room with David and not fall apart? Could I look him in the eye and hold my ground? Yes, I said. I can handle it. The next 7 days were strange. Life started to normalize in small ways. Client work, grocery shopping, coffee with friends who'd heard vague rumors about my separation and offered carefully worded support. But underneath the normalcy was a constant current of anxiety about the upcoming mediation. Marissa prepared me thoroughly. We practiced responses to likely arguments David might make. We reviewed all our evidence again. We discussed what my bottom line was, what I absolutely wouldn't negotiate on. The inheritance money, I said firmly. I want all $43,000 back. Non-negotiable. You'll get it. We have proof of source. Any judge would award it to you. And I want the house. We'd bought our house 3 years ago, a small craftsman in the Fremont neighborhood. We'd both contributed to the down payment, $30,000 from me, $20,000 from him, and we'd split the mortgage payments evenly. On paper, we had equal equity. The house is tricky, Marissa said. You both have legitimate claims. But given that you've been the primary resident since the separation and that he abandoned the property, we can argue you should have first right to buy him out. With what money? After he stole my savings, I don't have enough for a buyout. We'll figure it out. Maybe we trade, you get the house, he gets a larger share of his retirement account. Or we force a sale and split the proceeds, and you use your half to buy something else. The thought of selling our house, my house now, hurt more than I expected. I'd painted every room. I'd planted the garden. I'd chosen every light fixture and cabinet pull. It was mine in ways that had nothing to do with ownership papers. I want to keep it, I said. Then we'll make that happen. Thursday night, exactly 6 days after Patricia's frantic call and 1 day before mediation, my doorbell rang at 9 p.m. I checked the security camera and froze. David was standing on my porch. He looked terrible. He'd lost weight, his clothes were wrinkled, and his hair, usually meticulously styled, was messy and unwashed. He was holding something, but I couldn't see what from the camera angle. I didn't open the door. Instead, I called through it, "You need to leave. We're not supposed to have contact." "I know. I'm sorry. I needed to give you something. Please. I'll leave it on the porch. You don't have to see me." "David. Please, Claire. Just let me do this." I waited until I heard his footsteps retreating, heard his car start and drive away. Then I opened the door. On the porch was a box. Inside were things I'd forgotten about: a framed photo from our honeymoon, the watch I'd given him for our second anniversary, a journal where we'd written notes to each other early in our marriage. And underneath everything, an envelope with my name written in his handwriting. I brought it all inside and opened the envelope with shaking hands. Claire. I've been trying to find the right words for days. Weeks. Maybe. I don't think there are right words for what I need to say, but I'm going to try anyway. I'm sorry. Not sorry I got caught. Not sorry there are consequences. I'm sorry for what I did to you. To us. To the life we built together. I told myself I was unhappy. I told myself you didn't understand me anymore. I told myself that Simone was different, that she saw me in ways you didn't. I told myself a lot of lies to justify what I was doing. The truth is simpler and uglier. I was selfish. I was scared of being ordinary, of settling into middle age, of being just another married guy with a mortgage and responsibilities. Simone made me feel young and exciting. And instead of talking to you about what I was feeling, instead of working on our marriage or ending it honestly, I took the coward's way out. I took your money because I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to go through mediation or lawyers or splitting assets fairly. I wanted to run, and I wanted to take enough money to make running feel like winning. I lied to you. I betrayed you. I planned to humiliate you in court by painting you as unstable and dependent. I was going to take everything I could and leave you with as little as possible. And then you fought back. And you won. And I'm sitting here in my childhood bedroom at 38 years old with no job, no money, no relationship, and no one to blame but myself. Tomorrow we're going to sit across from each other in mediation and negotiate the end of our marriage. My lawyer tells me I have no leverage, that you have all the evidence, that I should take whatever settlement you offer because I'll get nothing better in court. His right. So I'm writing this to tell you that I won't fight you tomorrow. Whatever you want, whatever you ask for, I'll agree to it. The house, the money, all of it. You earned it by being the faithful one, the honest one, the one who kept her vows while I broke mine. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I wanted you to know that I understand now what I did to you. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. David. I read the letter 3 times, looking for the catch. The manipulation. The angle. But it seemed genuine. He seemed broken. I called Marissa at 9:47 p.m. He came to the house. What? Claire, that violates. He left a box and a letter. He didn't try to come inside. He just apologized. I told her what the letter said. She was quiet for a long moment. How do you feel? I don't know. Vindicated? Sad? Empty? I stared at the letter. He says he won't fight the settlement. People say a lot of things before mediation. Words are cheap. Let's see if he backs it up tomorrow. She paused. Are you okay? Do you need me to come over? No. I'm okay. I think I need to sit with this. After we hung up, I looked through the box David had left. The honeymoon photo showed us in Rome, standing in front of the Trevi fountain, my head on his shoulder, both of us grinning like we'd won the lottery. We'd been so happy. Or I'd been happy, at least. Had he been faking it even then? The journal entries were worse. Short notes we'd written to each other. Asterisk Claire, saw this book at the store and thought of you. Love you. D asterisk. Asterisk David, thank you for being patient with me this week. You're my favorite person. C asterisk. Asterisk C, 10 years from now, we're going to look back at this tiny apartment and laugh about how we thought we were broke. I can't wait to build our future with you. D asterisk. We'd never made it to that future. He'd burned it down before we could get there. I put everything back in the box, put the box in the back of my closet, and got ready for tomorrow. Asterisk, approx. 2,000 words. Asterisk. Chapter 6, The Mediation. Friday morning. I dressed carefully, a navy blue dress that was professional but not cold, pearl earrings my grandmother had left me, minimal makeup. I wanted to look put together but not like I was performing. Marissa picked me up at 8:30 a.m., and we drove to the mediator's office in downtown Seattle in her BMW, not talking much, both of us mentally preparing for battle. The mediation was being held in a neutral conference room on the 12th floor of a glass office building. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Elliott Bay, where ferries cut white lines across the grey water. It would have been beautiful if I wasn't so nauseous. David and his attorney, Jonathan Reeves, were already there when we arrived. David was sitting at the far end of the conference table, wearing a suit I recognized from our marriage, one I'd helped him pick out for a job interview 3 years ago. He looked up when I walked in, and our eyes met for the first time since he'd left. He looked haunted. That was the only word for it. Dark circles under his eyes, weight loss making his cheekbones sharper, a defeated slump to his shoulders. For a split second, I felt sorry for him. Then I remembered why we were here. The mediator, a woman in her 50s named Dr. Sarah Chen, welcomed us and explained the process. We'd start together to outline the issues, then break into separate rooms for private discussions, then come back together to negotiate. The goal was to reach a settlement agreement today if possible. Let's begin with assets, Dr. Chen said, pulling up a spreadsheet on the screen at the front of the room. I have here a list of all marital property, debts, and accounts. Let's start with the contested items. Ms. Whitman, your attorney has indicated that you're seeking return of the $43,812 withdrawn from your joint savings account. Can you explain your position? Marissa stood. The funds in question originated from Mrs. Whitman's inheritance from her maternal grandmother, received in August of last year. While the funds were deposited into a joint account, they were clearly separate property from the marriage. We have documentation showing the source of the funds, the probate settlement, the death certificate, the original check. We're seeking return of the full amount plus interest. Jonathan Reeves cleared his throat. Mr. Whitman doesn't dispute the source of the funds. However, once those funds were commingled in a joint account and used for marital purposes. They weren't used for marital purposes, I interrupted. Everyone looked at me. Those funds were deposited with the explicit agreement that they were being saved for a house down payment. We were going to buy a bigger house next spring. David knew that. We'd discussed it. The money was mine, and he stole it. Mrs. Whitman, Dr. Chen said gently, I understand emotions are high, but let's try to use neutral language. Mr. Reeves, please continue. My client acknowledges the funds came from an inheritance. He's willing to return $35,000 to Mrs. Whitman as her separate property. That's not enough, Marissa said coldly. He withdrew $43,812. She wants it all back. Mr. Whitman used approximately $8,000 to pay for the family trip. The trip he took with his mistress, Marissa interrupted. Let's be clear about what we're discussing. Mr. Whitman withdrew his wife's inheritance money without permission while she was recovering from surgery, used it to fund a luxury vacation with his girlfriend and his parents, then tried to abandon his wife with zero access to their marital savings. This isn't a good faith dispute about asset division. This is theft. Jonathan opened his mouth to respond, but David put his hand on his attorney's arm. Give her the full amount, David said quietly. All of it. Whatever's left after the trip, plus I'll pay back the rest from my share of other assets. She's right. I stole it. Jonathan looked at his client in shock. David, I need to advise. I know what you're going to say. But I'm not fighting this. It's her money. Give it back. David was staring at the table, not meeting anyone's eyes. Dr. Chen made a note. Okay. So we have agreement on the return of the full inheritance amount. Let's move on to the marital home. This was the big one. The house was worth about $480,000. We owed $290,000 on the mortgage. That left $190,000 in equity, minus closing costs if we sold. Split evenly, we'd each walk away with maybe $85,000. Marissa laid out my position. I wanted to keep the house and buy out David's share. I'd take over the full mortgage and give him 50% of the current equity, $95,000, paid over time or from refinancing. Jonathan countered. David wanted the house sold and the proceeds split evenly. He argued that I couldn't afford to buy him out, that I didn't have the income to support the mortgage alone, and that a clean break required liquidating joint property. My client's income is sufficient to support the mortgage, Marissa said. She's a successful freelance graphic designer with steady clients. She's been the primary resident of the home since the separation, has maintained all payments and upkeep, and has a strong emotional attachment to the property. Emotional attachment isn't a legal argument, Jonathan replied. And frankly, her income is variable and uncertain. A freelance income can't be guaranteed. The responsible thing is to sell and split. I felt David watching me but didn't look at him. I kept my eyes on Dr. Chen. Mrs. Whitman, Dr. Chen said. Can you afford to keep the house? Be honest. We're not here to judge, just to find workable solutions. Could I? My freelance income averaged about $72,000 a year before taxes. The mortgage was $2,400 a month. Add in utilities, insurance, property taxes, and I was looking at probably $38,000 a year just for the house. That left me $34,000 for everything else: food, car, health insurance, savings. It was tight. Really tight. But possible. I can afford it, I said. I'll make it work. With what down payment for the refinance? Jonathan pressed. She can't get approved for a new mortgage without significant cash reserves. And we've established she doesn't have those anymore. He was right. I couldn't refinance without proving I had savings, and David had emptied those savings. It was catch-22 designed by his own theft. What if we structure it differently? Marissa suggested. Mrs. Whitman keeps the house, takes over the mortgage as is without refinancing, and pays Mr. Whitman his equity share over time. 5 years, at fair market interest rates. 5 years of my client not seeing his share of the largest marital asset. Jonathan shook his head. That's not reasonable. Neither is forcing her to sell the home he abandoned after stealing her money, Marissa shot back. Dr. Chen raised her hand. Let's take a break. 15 minutes. When we come back, I'll meet with each of you separately. Marissa and I went to a private conference room down the hall. I was shaking. That was intense, I said. You did great. You stayed calm, you stated facts, you didn't get emotional. She squeezed my shoulder. But Claire, we need to talk about the house. Can you really afford it on your own? I have to try. What if you can't make payments? What if you have a slow month? You'll lose the house anyway, plus you'll have damaged your credit and exhausted yourself trying. I can't lose the house, Marissa. It's all I have left of the life I thought I was building. If I sell it, if I walk away, my voice cracked. He'll have taken everything. My money, my marriage, my home. Everything. He hasn't taken everything. You're still here. You're still fighting. And you're going to walk out of here with a fair settlement and the rest of your life ahead of you. She grabbed my hands. But I need you to think practically. Is keeping the house worth bankrupting yourself? I didn't have an answer. When we returned to the main conference room, David and Jonathan were already there. Dr. Chen asked to speak with David's side first. Marissa and I waited in our private room for 4 to 5 minutes, drinking bad coffee and not talking much. When it was our turn, Dr. Chen looked troubled. I've spoken with Mr. Whitman and his attorney. I'd like to share something Mr. Whitman said, with his permission. She glanced at her notes. He told me he doesn't want the house money. He says he doesn't deserve it. He wants you to have the house outright if that's what you want. I stared at her. What? He says he'll sign over his entire share of the equity to you as part of the settlement. You keep the house, you take over the mortgage, and he walks away with nothing from the property. That doesn't make sense. That's $95,000. He's aware. He says it's what he owes you for what he did. Dr. Chen leaned forward. Mrs. Whitman, I need to ask, is this what you want? Because if we structure the settlement this way, you're taking on significant financial responsibility. If you can't maintain the mortgage payments, you'll lose the house and there will be no safety net. Why would he do this? I asked. You'd have to ask him. But from what I've observed today, I believe he's genuine in his remorse and his desire to make amends in the only way he can, financially. Marissa and I looked at each other. Can we have a moment? She asked. Dr. Chen left. This is suspicious, Marissa said immediately. Nobody gives up $95,000 out of guilt. You read his letter. Maybe he means it. Or maybe it's a strategy. Maybe he's playing the reformed repentant husband to gain your sympathy and get better terms on other items. What other items? I'm getting my inheritance back. I'm getting the house. What else is there? His retirement account. Your claim to half of the appreciation during the marriage. Spousal support. Claire, there are a dozen other financial issues we haven't even discussed yet. If he gives you the house, his lawyer is going to argue you got more than your fair share and push back hard on everything else. I thought about it. The house was worth $95,000 to me in equity. David's retirement account had maybe $80,000, half of which I was entitled to, $40,000. There was no way I'd get spousal support given that I had income and he didn't. So if I take the house, I give up claims to other things. Probably. Yes. And if I don't take the house? We sell it, split the proceeds, and fight for every dollar of his retirement account and any other assets. You walk away with maybe $130,000 total, your inheritance back plus your share of the house and half his retirement. $130,000. It was a lot of money. It would let me start over, buy a condo, rebuild my savings, feel secure. But it wasn't home. I want the house, I said. Marissa studied my face for a long moment. Okay. Then let's make sure we protect you. We'll agree to take the house, but we'll structure it so you're not liable for any debts David incurred without your knowledge. And we'll still push for a portion of his retirement account, maybe not half, but something. We'll argue that the house equity doesn't fully compensate you for 6 years of marriage and his misconduct. Will that work? Let's find out. We reconvened in the main conference room. David looked worse than he had that morning, if that was possible. His tie was loosened, his jacket was off, and he had his head in his hands until he heard us come in. Dr. Chen reviewed the proposed terms. I would receive the full return of my $43,812 inheritance. I would receive the house outright, with David signing over all equity to me. In exchange, I would waive any claim to spousal support and would accept 25% of David's retirement account instead of the 50% I was entitled to. That's $30,000 less than she deserves from the retirement account, Marissa said. She's already giving up spousal support. The house equity doesn't cover that gap. Jonathan started to respond, but again, David stopped him. Give her 40%. 20,000 more. David, Jonathan said through clenched teeth. You need to stop negotiating against yourself. I'm not negotiating. I'm trying to make this right. David finally looked at me directly. Claire, I know nothing I do will ever make up for what I did to you. I know that. But please let me do this. Let me give you the settlement you deserve so we can both move forward. There was something in his voice, not manipulation, not performance, but genuine exhaustion. He was giving up. Not strategically, but because he had nothing left to fight with. 40% of the retirement account, I said. And David pays all mediation costs and attorney fees for both sides. Jonathan actually gasped. That's another $15,000 minimum. Agreed, David said. David. Jonathan looked like he might have a stroke. You can't agree to that. You can't afford that. You have no income. Then I'll get a job. I'll take out a loan. I don't care. David's voice was flat. She shouldn't have to pay for lawyers because of what I did. Dr. Chen looked between us. Are we in agreement on these terms? Mrs. Whitman receives her full inheritance, the house with full equity, 40% of Mr. Whitman's retirement account, and Mr. Whitman covers all mediation and legal fees for both parties. Yes, I said. Mr. Whitman. Yes. Mr. Reeves. Jonathan looked like he wanted to argue, but he just sighed. Against my advice, my client agrees. Then let's draft the agreement. It took another 3 hours to work through the details, how the retirement account would be divided, when the house title would transfer, how the inheritance repayment would be structured. There were a dozen smaller assets too, our cars, we each kept our own, furniture, I got most of it since I had the house, joint credit cards, closed and balanced paid by David, even our joint Costco membership, I got it, which felt absurdly petty to negotiate but apparently mattered for the legal record. By 4 p.m., we had a signed mediated settlement agreement. It would be filed with the court as part of the divorce decree. We'd still have to wait for the mandatory 90-day waiting period in Washington state, but after that, the divorce would be final. We all stood to leave. David's hand was on the door when he turned back. Claire, can I talk to you? Just for a minute. Alone. I looked at Marissa. She shook her head slightly. Not a good idea, but I nodded anyway. It's okay. Marissa and Jonathan left. Dr. Chen gathered her things and excused herself. And then it was just me and David, standing in this conference room with its view of the bay and its evidence of our marriage ending spread across the table in legal documents. Thank you, David said, for agreeing to mediation. For not dragging this out. I know you could have destroyed me worse than you did. I didn't destroy you, David. You did that yourself. I know. He shoved his hands in his pockets. I meant what I said in the letter. I'm sorry. I know it doesn't change anything, but I need you to know I mean it. Why did you do it? The question came out before I could stop it. We had problems, sure. Every marriage does. But why did you lie and cheat and steal instead of just talking to me? Instead of just ending things honestly? He was quiet for a long time. Because I'm a coward. Because talking to you would have meant admitting I'd failed at our marriage. It would have meant facing what I'd become. Just another middle-aged guy who wasn't special, wasn't exciting, wasn't anything he thought he'd be at this age. He looked at me, and his eyes were wet. Simone made me feel like I was still the person I was at 25. Like I still had potential, like life was still full of possibilities. And I chose that fantasy over the real life I'd built with you. Was any of it real? Our marriage. All of it was real. That's what makes it worse. I loved you, Claire. I still love you, in a way. But I wanted to be someone different more than I wanted to be with you. And that's unforgivable. I felt tears on my cheeks but didn't wipe them away. You're right. It is unforgivable. I know. He moved toward the door, then stopped. For whatever it's worth. You're going to be okay. Better than okay. You're strong in ways I never was. And I hope someday you find someone who deserves you, because I never did. Then he left. I stood in that conference room alone, crying, feeling the weight of 6 years of marriage dissolve into paperwork and legal terms. Marissa came back in and wrapped her arms around me, and I let myself sob into her shoulder, not for David, not for what I'd lost, but for what I'd never really had. The marriage I thought I had was fiction. But the woman I'd become in its ending? She was real. And she was just getting started. Asterisk, approx. 2,100 words. Asterisk. Chapter 7. 7 days later, the call. 7 days after the mediation, David called me crying. I was in the kitchen making dinner, pasta with a fancy sauce I only bought for myself now, when my phone rang. I'd unblocked his number after the mediation, figuring we might need to communicate about final paperwork or house details. But I wasn't expecting him to call. And I definitely wasn't expecting what he said. What did you do? His voice was wrecked, broken. Claire, what the fuck did you do? I set down my wooden spoon. What are you talking about? Simone. She's, Jesus Christ, Claire. She filed a sexual harassment claim against me. She's claiming I coerced her into a relationship, that I used my position as her manager to manipulate her, that I threatened her job if she didn't comply. He was sobbing now. The company's bringing criminal charges. Criminal, Claire. They're saying I defrauded them, that I sexually harassed an employee, that I created a hostile work environment. I felt cold. I didn't tell her to do that. Bullshit. You must have said something, done something. She's claiming you contacted her and told her she should protect herself legally. She's saying you showed her evidence that I'd manipulated her. I never contacted Simone. I never spoke to her. Then how does she have our emails? How does she have screenshots of texts where I told her I loved her and was going to leave you? How does she have proof that I booked the Maldives trip on my corporate card? His voice rose to a shout. You gave them to her. You ruined my life and then you gave my mistress ammunition to destroy what was left. David, I did not give Simone anything. I hate you. The venom in his voice was shocking. I tried to do the right thing. I gave you everything in the settlement. I apologized. I took responsibility. And you still couldn't let it go. You had to make sure I was completely destroyed. I didn't. But he'd already hung up. I stood there, sauce bubbling on the stove, trying to process what had just happened. Simone had filed harassment charges, with evidence I supposedly provided. I called Marissa immediately. Did you give Simone Torres any of our evidence? What? No. Why? I told her about David's call. Marissa was silent for a moment, then started laughing. Actually laughing. Oh my God, she said. Simone's playing him. She's protecting herself. What do you mean? Think about it, Claire. Simone got fired because of her relationship with David. Her career in pharma sales is over. Everyone in the industry knows what happened. She can't get a reference, can't explain the gap in her employment without admitting to the affair. She's toxic in the job market. Okay, so she's flipping the script. If she claims she was the victim of sexual harassment, that David coerced her using his power as her manager, then suddenly she's not the homewrecker who had an affair with her boss. She's a victim of workplace abuse. It changes the entire narrative. But the evidence. She has her own evidence, Claire. She was there. She has every email David sent her, every text, every photo. She doesn't need your evidence. She has her own. Marissa's voice was gleeful. And David screwed because everything he wrote to her that seemed romantic in context. In the context of a harassment claim, it looks coercive. I can't wait to finally be with you without hiding becomes he was pressuring me to continue an inappropriate relationship. Once you're free from her, we can really start our lives becomes he was promising me a future if I stayed compliant. That's brilliant, I said slowly. It's self-preservation. Simone's 27 and smart enough to realize she needs to salvage her career and reputation. Claiming harassment is her best play. She probably has a lawyer advising her. Marissa paused. And you know what the best part is? What? David can't prove it was consensual. Oh, sure, he can show that she initiated some messages, that she seemed happy, that she was a willing participant. But he was her manager. The power dynamic makes consent murky at best. And if she's claiming he used corporate resources, made promises about her career advancement, created an environment where she felt she had to comply, that's textbook sexual harassment, even if the relationship was technically consensual at the time. I thought about Simone, young, ambitious, probably terrified when she got fired. Probably realizing that her name was going to be attached to this scandal forever unless she could reframe herself as a victim instead of a villain. I almost feel bad for her, I said. Don't. She made choices too. But she's making the smart choice now to protect herself. And if that takes David down even further, well, that's just karma. After we hung up, I sat with it. David thought I'd orchestrated this. He thought I'd weaponized Simone against him. The truth was simpler. Simone had weaponized herself, and David was collateral damage in her attempt to salvage her future. But his words echoed in my head, I hate you. After everything, the apology, the mediation, the settlement where he'd given me more than he had to, he hated me. Because in his mind, I was still the villain. I was still the vindictive ex-wife who couldn't let things go. Maybe he was right. Maybe I should feel guilty. Maybe I should have stopped after the mediation, should have let him rebuild his life in peace. But then I remembered the note on the kitchen counter. The $43,000. The photos in our bed. The draft divorce papers where he'd called me unstable and dependent. He'd tried to destroy me first. He'd just failed. And if Simone was now finishing what I'd started? Well, I couldn't control that. But I couldn't feel too bad about it either. 3 days later, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mrs. Whitman? This is Detective Maria Santos with the Seattle Police Department. I'm calling regarding David Whitman. My stomach dropped. Is he okay? He's fine, physically, but has been arrested on charges of corporate fraud and embezzlement. During the investigation into the sexual harassment complaint filed by Simone Torres, BioPharm Solutions discovered additional evidence of financial misconduct. We're calling you because some of the fraudulent transactions occurred during your marriage, and we need to confirm that you had no knowledge of or involvement in these activities. I didn't know about any fraud. Can you come down to the station to give a formal statement? An hour later, I was sitting in a grey interview room at the Seattle Police Department, telling Detective Santos and her partner everything I knew about David's finances. They showed me evidence, corporate card statements where David had charged personal expenses as business costs, altered receipts, falsified client entertainment records. Thousands of dollars, maybe tens of thousands, all fraudulently billed to his company. We believe this has been ongoing for at least 2 years, Detective Santos said. Ms. Torres's complaint prompted the company to do a full audit of his accounts. They found a pattern of fraud that predates the relationship with Ms. Torres. What happens now? He'll be arraigned. Given the amount of money involved and the duration of the fraud, he's looking at felony charges. If convicted, he could face prison time. Prison. David could go to prison. I gave my statement, signed paperwork confirming I hadn't known about the fraud, and left. On the drive home, I felt numb. This was beyond anything I'd imagined. I'd wanted him to face consequences. I'd wanted him to understand what he'd done to me. But prison? That night, Michael called. You heard about the arrest? Yeah. Mom and Dad are devastated. They keep asking how this happened, how their son became a criminal. He sighed. I told them the truth. David's been lying to everyone for years. To you, to his company, to them. This isn't new. They're just finally seeing it. How is he? Honestly, I don't know. They posted bail. Dad pulled money from his retirement account. David's back at their house, but he won't talk to anyone. Just sits in his room. Michael paused. Claire, I know this sounds weird, but thank you. For what? For fighting back. For not letting him get away with it. If you hadn't stood up to him, he'd still be out there lying and cheating and stealing. Maybe you saved the next woman he would have done this to. I hadn't thought about it that way. I'd been so focused on my own hurt, my own revenge, that I hadn't considered whether exposing David might protect someone else down the line. Michael, I need you to know, I didn't orchestrate the harassment complaint. I didn't give Simone any evidence. I didn't know about the corporate fraud. I just protected myself. I know. But you protecting yourself started a chain reaction that exposed everything else he was hiding. That's not your fault. That's his. After we hung up, I poured a glass of wine and sat on my back porch, looking at the garden I'd planted. It was late October now, almost November. The leaves were falling, the days were getting shorter, and everything was dying back for winter. But in the spring, it would all come back. That's what gardens did. They died and returned, stronger than before. Maybe I would too. Asterisk, approx. 2,000 words. Asterisk. Chapter 8. The Fallout. The divorce was finalized on a grey Tuesday in early December, 93 days after I'd filed for legal separation. I didn't attend the hearing. I didn't have to since we'd signed a mediated settlement agreement. Judge Morrison reviewed the paperwork, signed the decree, and just like that, I stopped being Claire Whitman and went back to being Claire Bradford. Marissa texted me a photo of the stamped decree. Asterisk, you're officially free. Asterisk. I stared at the message for a long time, trying to feel something. Relief, sadness, victory, but I just felt tired. The house was mine now. The title transfer had gone through the week before, and seeing my name, just my name, on the deed had been surreal. This was my house, my space, my future. I could paint the walls whatever color I wanted. I could rip out the carpet David had insisted on keeping. I could make it truly mine. But first, I had to deal with the ghosts. I spent a weekend going through the house room by room, removing everything that was David's or reminded me of him. Clothes he'd left behind went to Goodwill. Wedding photos came off the walls and went into a box in the attic. I couldn't bring myself to throw them away, but I didn't want to see them either. The furniture we'd bought together stayed because I needed it, but I rearranged everything, changed the layout of every room so it felt different, looked different. In the bedroom, I bought new sheets, new pillows, even a new comforter. I wanted nothing that he'd touched, nothing that smelled like us. My friend Marissa came over one evening and found me sitting in the empty living room, surrounded by boxes of David's stuff ready to be donated. How are you doing? She asked, sitting down next to me on the floor. I don't know. Some days I feel strong. Like I survived something terrible and came out better for it. Other days I feel. I gestured at the boxes. Empty. Like I spent 6 years building a life with someone who didn't exist, and now I have to figure out who I am without him. You're Claire Bradford. Graphic designer. Homeowner. Survivor. Woman who doesn't take shit from anyone. She bumped my shoulder. And my best friend. I used to think I knew what love looked like. What marriage was supposed to be. I picked at the carpet. Now I don't know anything. Yes, you do. You know what it's not supposed to be. That's valuable too. We ordered pizza and spent the evening packing up the last of David's belongings. There was something cathartic about it, physically removing him from my space, reclaiming my home. By the time Marissa left, the house felt lighter. The next week, I got a Facebook message from someone I didn't know. Hi Claire. You don't know me, but my name is Jessica Cho. I used to work with David at Biofarm. I heard about everything that happened, and I just wanted to reach out and say thank you. I stared at the message, confused. Thank me for what? I responded, thank you for reaching out, but I'm not sure what you're thanking me for, Her reply came quickly, David harassed me 3 years ago. Nothing physical, just constant inappropriate comments, touching my shoulders, standing too close. I reported it to HR, but nothing happened because he was a high performer and I was new. I ended up quitting because I couldn't deal with it anymore. When your story came out, when Simone filed her complaint, I contacted the company's lawyers and gave them my statement. They're using it as part of their case against him. So thank you for standing up to him. You gave other women the courage to come forward too. I felt sick. 3 years ago. That was early in our marriage. While I was trusting him, loving him, building a life with him, he was harassing women at work. I wrote back, I'm so sorry that happened to you. You deserved better from the company and from him. Over the next few days, I got 3 more messages. Different women, different stories, all with the same theme. David had been inappropriate, had pushed boundaries, had used his position to make them uncomfortable. None of them had been taken seriously when they'd reported it, and all of them had either left the company or transferred to different departments to get away from him. I forwarded all the messages to Detective Santos. She called me that evening. Mrs. Witt, sorry, Ms. Bradford. These statements are helpful. They establish a pattern of behavior that strengthens both the harassment case and the company's fraud investigation. How is the case going? I can't give you specifics, but I can tell you that your ex-husband's attorney is pushing for a plea deal. The evidence against him is overwhelming. If he goes to trial, he'll lose. What kind of plea deal? Probably felony fraud with reduced jail time in exchange for full restitution to the company and a guilty plea. He'd serve maybe 18 months in minimum security. 18 months. David would go to prison for 18 months. Part of me felt vindicated. He'd tried to ruin my life, and instead he'd ruined his own. But another part of me, a small, quiet part that I didn't like to acknowledge, felt sad. This was the man I'd married. The man I'd loved. And watching him fall this far, this fast, was harder than I'd expected. Ms. Bradford. Detective Santos's voice pulled me back. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Christmas came and went. I spent it with my family, my mom, my sister Rachel, Rachel's husband, and kids. They were careful around me, treating me like I might break at any moment. Mom kept asking if I was eating enough, sleeping enough, if I needed anything. Rachel cornered me in the kitchen on Christmas Eve. Are you really okay? She asked. Why does everyone keep asking me that? Because your husband cheated on you, stole your money, and is now going to prison. That's a lot, Claire. Ex-husband. And honestly, I'm better than I've been in years. I leaned against the counter. I didn't realize how unhappy I was until I wasn't anymore. Does that make sense? She nodded slowly. You seem different. Stronger, maybe. Or harder. I don't know. Both probably. I smiled. But I'm okay, Rachel. I really am. And I meant it. The holidays were strange without David. No one to buy gifts for, no in-laws to visit, no traditions to maintain. But they were also peaceful. I didn't have to perform or pretend or manage anyone else's feelings. I could just be. New Year's Eve, I stayed home alone. I opened a bottle of champagne at midnight, stood in my living room, and toasted to the empty house. To new beginnings, I said to no one. And to never being that naive again. In mid-January, David pleaded guilty to felony fraud and agreed to 18 months in minimum security prison followed by 3 years of probation. He was ordered to pay back $73,000 to Biofarm Solutions. The harassment case was settled separately, with Simone receiving an undisclosed amount from the company's insurance. Michael called to tell me he's going to report to prison in 3 weeks. Federal facility in Oregon. How are your parents? Mom's not speaking to me because I told her this was David's fault, not yours. Dad's just quiet. Disappointed, I think. He sighed. They wanted me to ask if you'd be willing to talk to David before he goes in. He wants to apologize again. No. I figured. But I had to ask. He paused. For what it's worth, I think you made the right call. With all of it. After we hung up, I thought about what he'd said. Did I make the right call? I'd protected myself, exposed David's crimes, and let the consequences fall where they may. But I'd also triggered a chain of events that led to a man going to prison. Was I responsible for that? Marissa would say no. She'd say David was responsible for his own choices, his own crimes. That I'd simply refused to be complicit in covering them up. But late at night, when the house was quiet and I was alone with my thoughts, I wondered. Where was the line between justice and revenge? Between protecting yourself and destroying someone else? I didn't have an answer. Maybe there wasn't one. February brought rain and grey skies and a routine that started to feel normal. Work, gym, groceries, coffee with friends. I went on a few dates. Apps were terrifying and mostly disappointing, but I wasn't ready for anything serious. I was still figuring out who Claire Bradford was without being half of David and Claire. One afternoon, I was at Home Depot buying paint for the bedroom when I ran into Patricia, David's mother. She was alone, looking at light fixtures, and she saw me before I could escape. Claire. Her voice was cold. Patricia. We stood there awkwardly for a moment. Then she said, I hope you're happy. You got what you wanted. My son is in prison. I didn't want that. Didn't you? You could have stopped all of this. You could have just divorced him quietly and moved on. But you had to destroy him. You had to take everything from him until there was nothing left. The unfairness of it made me angry. He stole from me. He cheated on me. He committed fraud. Those are his choices, Patricia, not mine. He made mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. But you turn those mistakes into a prison sentence. Her voice was rising, and people were starting to stare. He loved you, Claire. He wanted to make things right. But you couldn't let it go. You had to have your revenge. He didn't love me, I said quietly. If he had, he wouldn't have done what he did. And I didn't send him to prison. His own actions did that. I just refused to cover for him anymore. Patricia's face crumpled. For a moment, she looked old and tired and defeated. He's my son, she whispered. I know. And I'm sorry he's hurting. But I'm not sorry I protected myself. I picked up my paint can. Take care of yourself, Patricia. I walked away before she could respond. My hands were shaking, but I felt, not good, exactly, but clear. I'd said what I needed to say. I'd set the boundary I needed to set. And I'd walked away. That evening, I painted my bedroom a soft sage green, nothing like the beige David had insisted on. I moved the furniture around, hung new curtains, added plants. By the time I finished, it looked like a different room. It looked like my room. And for the first time in months, when I lay down to sleep that night, I felt like I was home. Asterisk, approx. 2,000 words. Asterisk. Chapter 9, Rebuilding. Spring came slowly that year. The cherry blossoms bloomed along my street in late March, and I spent a Saturday afternoon planting new flowers in the garden, daffodils and tulips and hyacinths that would come back every year, getting stronger each season. My business was thriving. Word had gotten out about my situation, not the details, but enough that people knew I was going through a divorce, and several women business owners had reached out with new projects. They wanted to support another woman rebuilding her life. The work was good, the money was steady, and for the first time since David left, I wasn't worried about making the mortgage payment. I'd also started therapy. Not because I was falling apart, but because Marissa had suggested it might help me process everything that had happened. Dr. Nina Williams was a therapist who specialized in betrayal trauma and narcissistic abuse. Our first session, she'd asked me what I wanted to get out of therapy. "I want to understand why I didn't see it coming," I'd said. "I want to know what was wrong with me that I trusted someone who was lying to me for months, maybe years." "There's nothing wrong with you for trusting your husband," she'd replied gently. "Trust is what you're supposed to do in a marriage. The question isn't why you trusted him. It's why he violated that trust." Over the next few months, we unpacked my marriage. The subtle ways David had undermined my confidence. The gaslighting when I'd questioned his late nights at work. The way he'd made me feel like I was overreacting or being paranoid whenever I'd expressed concern about his distance. "You weren't crazy," Dr. Williams said during one session. "You were responding to real changes in his behavior. He was pulling away. But instead of acknowledging that, he made you doubt your own perception of reality. That's emotional abuse." I thought emotional abuse was yelling and name-calling. It can be. But it can also be subtle. Dismissing your feelings. Making you question your memory. Blaming you for his unhappiness. All of those are forms of emotional manipulation. Learning this was both validating and painful. Validating because it confirmed that my instincts had been right, something had been wrong. Painful because it meant accepting that my marriage had been toxic in ways I hadn't recognized at the time. "Do you think you'll ever trust someone again?" Dr. Williams asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "Right now, the idea of letting someone that close again terrifies me." "That's normal. You're protecting yourself. But I hope eventually you'll be able to open yourself to connection again, when you're ready. Not everyone is David." I wasn't sure I believed her. But I wanted to. In late April, I got a letter from David. It had been forwarded through Marissa's office. I told her that any communication from him should go through her first so I could decide whether I wanted to read it. I almost threw it away. But curiosity won out. Claire. I don't know if you'll read this. I wouldn't blame you if you threw it away without opening it. But I'm writing it anyway, because there are things I need to say and I don't know if I'll ever get another chance. I've been in prison for 2 months now. It's not as bad as I thought it would be. Minimum security is more like a very strict college dorm than what you see in movies. But it's given me a lot of time to think. About who I was, who I became, and how I destroyed the best thing in my life. I've been going to therapy here. Mandatory, but also helpful. My therapist says I have narcissistic tendencies, that I was so focused on my own needs and feelings that I couldn't see how my actions affected you. She says I compartmentalized, kept different parts of my life separate so I didn't have to confront the contradictions. At work, I was the successful manager. With Simone, I was the exciting boyfriend. With you, I was the good husband. And I convinced myself I could be all those things without any of them conflicting. But they did conflict. And when they collided, instead of facing what I'd done, I tried to run. I tried to take the money and start over and pretend the previous 6 years hadn't happened. I tried to erase you. I'm so sorry, Claire. Not sorry I got caught. Not sorry there are consequences. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I betrayed you. I'm sorry I tried to make you the villain when I was the one who destroyed everything. You deserved better than me. You deserved honesty and loyalty and a partner who saw you as more than just part of his life that he'd outgrown. You deserved someone who would fight for your marriage instead of running from it. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I understand now what I did to you. And I'm sorry. Asterisk. Asterisk, I hope you're happy. I hope you're healing. I hope you find someone who sees how extraordinary you are and never takes that for granted. Asterisk. Asterisk. David asterisk. I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer and didn't look at it again for weeks. Was I supposed to forgive him now? Was this closure? Or was it just another attempt at manipulation, trying to rewrite himself as a reformed ex-husband who'd learned his lesson? I called Dr. Williams and read her the letter during our next session. How does it make you feel? She asked. Angry. Because it's too late. None of this matters now. Do you believe he means it? I thought about it. Maybe. But believing he's sorry doesn't change what he did. It doesn't undo the trauma. It doesn't give me back the years I spent thinking I was in a safe, honest marriage. You're right. It doesn't. But it might give you something else. What? Evidence that what happened wasn't your fault. That you didn't miss some obvious signs. That he was actively hiding who he was, and even now, with all the therapy and consequences, he's still figuring it out. She leaned forward. Claire, you didn't fail. Your marriage failed because your husband was dishonest. That's not on you. I felt something loosen in my chest. A tightness I didn't realize I'd been carrying. Thank you, I whispered. By summer, I'd settled into a new version of my life. I'd joined a book club with other women in my neighborhood. I'd started taking pottery classes on Thursday evenings. I'd even adopted a rescue dog, a scruffy terrier mix named Milo, who followed me from room to room and slept at the foot of my bed. The house was fully mine now. I'd painted every room, replaced the carpet with hardwood, updated the bathroom fixtures. It looked nothing like the house David and I had shared. It looked like my house. I was happy. Not the giddy, innocent happiness I'd felt early in my marriage, but a deeper, steadier happiness that came from knowing I could rely on myself. That I could survive the worst thing I'd imagined and come out stronger. Marissa came over one Saturday for brunch. We sat in my backyard. The garden was thriving, with mimosas and quiche and Milo begging for scraps. You look good, she said. Like, genuinely good. Not just holding it together good. I feel good, I admitted. It took a while, but I think I'm okay. Really okay. Have you thought about dating? A little. I've been on some apps, gone on a few dates. Nothing serious yet, but I'm open to it. I sipped my mimosa. I'm just not in a rush. For the first time in my adult life, I'm comfortable being alone. I actually like it. That's growth, Marissa said, raising her glass. To Claire Bradford. Survivor, homeowner, and woman who burned down her cheating husband's life without leaving her kitchen. We clinked glasses and laughed. It felt good to laugh about it now. The pain was still there, probably always would be, but it didn't define me anymore. That afternoon, after Marissa left, I sat in my garden with Milo curled up next to me and thought about everything that had happened. A year ago, I'd been married, naive, trusting. I'd thought I knew what my future looked like. Now, I had no idea what came next. But for the first time, that didn't scare me. It felt like possibility. My phone buzzed with an email notification. A potential new client, a startup founder who'd heard about my work and wanted to discuss branding for her company. I responded immediately, setting up a consultation for next week. This was my life now. Building something that was entirely mine. Making decisions that only affected me. Taking risks without having to consider anyone else's opinion. David had tried to take everything from me. My money, my dignity, my future. But in the end, he'd given me something he never intended, freedom. October came around again, marking exactly 1 year since that Tuesday morning when I'd woken up to find my life shattered. I spent the anniversary of that day doing something I'd been putting off, clearing out the last box of David's belongings from the attic. Most of it was junk, old tax returns, random cables, books he'd never read. But at the bottom, I found our wedding album. I sat cross-legged on the attic floor, dust motes floating in the afternoon light, and opened it. There we were. 28-year-old Claire and 32-year-old David, standing at the altar, promising forever. I looked so happy in those photos. So certain. So blissfully unaware that the man I was marrying would one day steal everything from me. But looking at those photos now, I didn't feel the pain I'd expected. I felt peaceful. That girl in the white dress had believed in love and trust and happily ever after. She'd given her whole heart to someone who didn't deserve it. And yes, she'd gotten hurt. But she'd also survived. She'd become me. I closed the album and put it back in the box. Not throwing it away, but not keeping it where I could see it either. It was part of my history, but it wasn't my future. Downstairs, my phone rang. I answered without checking the caller ID. Claire Bradford. Speaking. This is Officer Chen from Washington State Department of Corrections. I'm calling to inform you that David Whitman is being released on early parole next week. As the victim in his case, you're entitled to notification and can request certain conditions. I don't need any conditions, I interrupted. I'm not worried about him contacting me. Are you certain? We can include a no-contact order. I'm certain. Thank you for letting me know. After I hung up, I sat with the news. David was getting out early. Good behavior, probably. He'd serve the rest of his sentence on probation, but he'd be free. A year ago, that news would have terrified me. Would have sent me spiraling into anxiety about what he might do, how he might retaliate, whether I was safe. Now, I felt nothing but mild curiosity about what he'd do with his life. He'd lost his career, his reputation, his marriage. He had a felony conviction that would follow him forever. He'd have to rebuild from nothing, with everyone knowing what he'd done. But that was his problem, not mine. The next week, I was at my favorite coffee shop, working on a client project, when Michael texted, *David's out. Staying with mom and dad temporarily while he looks for work and housing. Wanted you to know in case you ran into him around town. I wrote back, thanks for the heads up. I'm not worried. And I meant it. That evening, I had dinner with a man named Chris I'd been casually seeing for about a month. He was a software developer, divorced with 2 kids, kind and funny and refreshingly honest about his own past mistakes. We weren't serious yet, might never be, but I enjoyed his company. Over pasta at a little Italian place in Ballard, he asked me about my divorce. You don't talk about it much. Is it too painful? No, it's not who I am anymore, I said. It's something that happened to me, but it doesn't define me. That's healthy, he said. My ex-wife and I have been divorced for 3 years, and I still spend too much time thinking about what went wrong. Want my advice? Always. Stop trying to figure out what went wrong. You'll never get a perfect answer. Just focus on what you learned and what you want to be different next time. He smiled. That's good advice. What did you learn? I thought about it. I learned that trust has to be earned, not just given. I learned that I'm stronger than I thought I was. And I learned that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the thing that saves you. Deep, he teased. Shut up, I laughed, throwing my napkin at him. Walking home that night, Milo trotting beside me on his leash, I felt content in a way I couldn't have imagined a year ago. My life looked nothing like I'd planned. But it was mine, authentically and completely. 3 months later, in January, I got one final message from David. It came through LinkedIn. He must have created a new account, since I'd blocked his old one. Claire, I know we're not supposed to be in contact. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I started a new job. Data entry, nothing glamorous. I'm sharing an apartment with 2 roommates. I'm in therapy twice a week. I'm working on myself. I'm not the man you married anymore. I'm trying to become someone better. Someone honest. Asterisk, I hope you're well. I hope you're happy. And I hope someday you can think of me without pain. Asterisk. Asterisk, take care of yourself. Asterisk. Asterisk. D asterisk. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I blocked the account without responding. Not out of anger. Not out of revenge. But because I didn't need closure from him anymore. I'd already found it within myself. Dr. Williams had asked me recently when I'd know I was truly healed. When I can think about him without feeling anything, I'd said. Not anger, not pain, not even satisfaction at his consequences. Just nothing. I wasn't quite there yet. But I was close. It's been 2 years now since that Tuesday morning when everything fell apart. I'm 36 years old, still living in my house in Fremont, still running my graphic design business. Milo is older and slightly less energetic, but still follows me everywhere. I'm dating someone new, not Chris, that fizzled out after a few months, but a woman named Sarah I met through my book club. That was a surprise. I'd never dated women before, but Sarah is smart and kind and makes me laugh, and for the first time in years, I feel like I'm being seen for who I actually am. My business is thriving. I hired an assistant last year and I'm considering expanding into branding consulting. The house is paid down faster than expected. I made good money and put every extra dollar into the mortgage. At this rate, I'll loan it outright in 8 years. I don't think about David much anymore. Occasionally I hear updates through Michael. David moved to Portland, got a job in sales again at a much smaller company, is dating someone new. I feel nothing about any of it except mild hope that he really has changed and won't do to someone else what he did to me. But mostly, I don't think about him at all. I think about my garden, which gets more beautiful every spring. I think about my next pottery class project. I think about the weekend trip Sarah and I are planning to the San Juans. I think about the life I'm building, brick by brick, entirely on my own terms. People ask me sometimes if I regret how I handled things. If I wish I'd been less ruthless, more forgiving, quicker to let go. The answer is no. I protected myself. I held him accountable. I refused to be a silent victim. And in doing so, I found strength I didn't know I had. My revenge wasn't elaborate or cruel. It was simple. I survived. I thrived. I built a life so much better than the one he tried to destroy that his betrayal became the best thing that ever happened to me. And that's the sweetest revenge of all. Asterisk, if this story resonated with you, I hope you know that you're stronger than you think. If someone betrayed you, stole from you, tried to break you, you can survive it. You can build something beautiful from the ashes. Asterisk. Asterisk, don't let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting yourself. Don't let anyone tell you that standing up for yourself is wrong. And don't ever let anyone convince you that their mistakes are your responsibility to fix. Asterisk. Asterisk, you deserve better. And you have the strength to claim it. Asterisk. Asterisk, thank you for reading my story. I hope it gave you something, hope, courage, or just the satisfaction of seeing someone who did wrong face consequences. Asterisk. Asterisk, take care of yourselves. And remember, the best revenge is a life well lived. Asterisk.